As the monsoon rains and rare tropical storms ravage Southeast Asia, the scale of destruction and human suffering is now shocking. Across Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand and Malaysia, more than 1,100 people have lost their lives in a matter of days. In Indonesia, official agencies report 604 confirmed deaths and hundreds missing, especially on the island of Sumatra, where provinces like Aceh, North Sumatra and West Sumatra are hardest hit. In Sri Lanka, the toll has reached 355 dead, with hundreds still missing, after catastrophic flooding and landslides following storms. Southern Thailand records 176 deaths, and Malaysia, though less affected in terms of numbers, also counts fatalities and thousands of displaced citizens. Entire cities lie submerged or destroyed, homes and infrastructure wiped out, entire communities displaced, millions forced into makeshift shelters, uncertain of what remains of their lives. From the first hour, the disaster struck without mercy. In Indonesia, swirling floodwaters invaded villages and towns, sweeping away houses and properties. In one flood-ravaged district, residents told how streets that had once been bustling became instant rivers. Cars submerged up to their windows, scooters drifting aimlessly, market stalls floating apart. Many people did not have time to escape. They woke up to water rushing through doorways, walls collapsing under pressure, mudslides swallowing entire neighborhoods. In the hills above, landslides thundered down slopes, uprooting trees, tearing away roads and bridges. Bridges collapsed. Communication and electricity lines snapped, isolating entire regions. Helicopters became the only way to reach stranded survivors. Naval ships and military vessels were mobilized to deliver food, water, medicine and evacuate people trapped in remote villages. In Sri Lanka, towns along rivers were overwhelmed as dams and waterways burst under the relentless rain. As floodwaters surged, entire neighborhoods vanished beneath murky currents. Homes crumbled, roads turned to mud, power failed. Families fled at night, carrying only what they could grab, leaving behind everything else. In the capital and lowland areas, streets became canals. Mothers carried children on their shoulders through waist-deep water. The elderly clung to debris, pets, livestock, family possessions all lost in an instant. Temporary shelters, schools, community centers overflowed. Tens of thousands of displaced people queued for water, food, blankets, praying for safety, for rescue, for hope. In southern Thailand, regions like Songkhla, and notably the urban center of Hat Yai, were struck by rainfall described by meteorologists as a once-in-a-century deluge. In just 3 days, historic levels of rain submerged the city. Water crept into second floors of buildings, overpowered drainage, turned narrow streets into wide canals, engulfed markets, houses, infrastructure. Cars floated, buses stalled, shops underwater, electricity and water supplies cut off. Hospitals struggled or shut entirely. Those still standing treated patients by candlelight. Emergency wards cramped with injured, flooded and unreachable. Rescue teams used boats, makeshift rafts, and even airlifts to evacuate pregnant women, infants, elderly, those trapped on rooftops. Communities rallied. Fishermen turned rescuers. Volunteers distributed food and blankets. Local temples opened doors as temporary shelters. But the scope is immense. Thousands are displaced, families broken, livelihoods ruined. Malaysia has not escaped unscathed. Heavy rains and overflow from upstream rivers flooded towns in Perlis, Kato and other northern states. Residents reported water suddenly rising in minutes, engulfing homes, sweeping away furniture. Those lucky enough escaped had to watch from high ground as entire neighborhoods disappeared beneath brown, fast-moving floodwaters. Evacuation centers now host tens of thousands. Emergency services desperately trying to deliver aid, but access remains difficult as roads are washed out or blocked by landslides. The human cost is overwhelming, but so is the infrastructure damage. Roads, bridges, railways, many are broken or underwater. Power lines and water supply networks severed. Communication lines down. Hospitals flooded or destroyed. In rural zones, farmland lies under mud and debris, rice fields submerged, rubber and palm oil plantations ruined, harvest lost, animals drowned. For thousands of families, this disaster wiped out their homes, their income, their future. Shops, small businesses, markets, all destroyed or underwater. In some areas, looting and desperation spread as water rose faster than aid could arrive. The immediate survival has become the first battle. Rebuilding will be a war that may last years. In refugee shelters and evacuation camps, conditions are dire. Tens of thousands crowded together, families sharing tiny spaces, water and sanitation systems overwhelmed or non-existent, clean drinking water scarce, medical care limited. Volunteers and international aid agencies are working round the clock to provide food, water, medical supplies, and blankets. But the risks remain. Contaminated flood water mixes with sewage, raising the threat of waterborne diseases. Stagnant waters draw mosquitoes, heightening risk of epidemics, cold, damp, overcrowding, perfect conditions for illness, especially among children, the elderly, the vulnerable. Aid workers warn of a potential second wave, diseases, malnutrition, mental trauma. Yet amid the destruction and despair, glimmers of humanity persist. Stories emerge of neighbors helping neighbors, fishermen abandoning their nets to rescue stranded families, local monks and religious communities opening their doors to refugees, volunteers delivering food by boat through flooded streets, strangers sharing what little they have. In Aceh, rescuers risked landslides and collapsed roads to bring medicine and water to isolated villages. In Sri Lanka, volunteers cooked warm meals for displaced families in school-converted shelters. In Thailand, monks paddled boats carrying blankets and baby supplies to families trapped on rooftops. In many shelters, children draw pictures of ruined homes and broken bridges, but also of hope, small boats, warm meals, hands reaching out to help. The scale of this disaster forces a painful question. Are we witnessing just another tragic weather event or a brutal warning? Meteorologists and climate scientists point to the unusual formation of a tropical storm in the narrow waters of the Malacca Strait, an area not historically prone to cyclones. Warm ocean temperatures, saturated monsoon winds, shifting weather patterns, all combine to produce a storm system far stronger and more destructive than usual. The intensity, speed, unpredictability, experts say this could well be the new normal for Southeast Asia. This disaster is not just a flood. It is a demonstration of how climate change, environmental degradation, deforestation, unregulated development, and fragile infrastructure can combine into a deadly cocktail. Regions considered safe are no longer safe. Communities that survived traditional monsoons are now vulnerable to storms of new violence. And as rising seas, warmer oceans, heavier rainfall become more common, the risk is only growing. International and regional response has begun. Militaries deployed in several countries to aid rescue and relief operations. Emergency shelters opened, flights and ships dispatched. International aid offers coming from neighboring countries. But the logistical challenge is colossal. Destroyed roads, blocked rivers, collapsed bridges, remote villages cut off by landslides. Reaching survivors is often a race against time and nature. Rebuilding will take more than months. Rebuilding trust, rebuilding communities, rebuilding lives. For survivors, the trauma will remain. Memories of water rising higher than rooftops, of loved ones lost, of newborns saved by helicopters, of children paddling tiny rafts made from furniture. Many will struggle with grief, displacement, poverty. Others may never return home. Those who rebuild will have to confront not just physical reconstruction, houses, roads, infrastructure, but psychological scars, loss of community, loss of belongings, loss of livelihood. As you watch this video, remember, these floods, this horror, are not far away. They are real. Lives have been lost. Futures destroyed, but people still hope. People still fight. People still survive. And the world must not turn away. We all share this planet. The disasters anywhere can be disasters everywhere if we do not act. Share this story. Spread awareness. Support credible humanitarian organizations. Demand climate action. Ask your leaders to build resilient infrastructure, early warning systems, disaster-proof planning. Because the waters may recede, but the scars will stay. And rebuilding will only begin if we refuse to forget the names, the faces, the lives lost. And yet, even as emergency crews continue searching through the mud and debris for survivors, tens of thousands of families are trying to understand what comes next. Many stare at the ruins of their former lives. A collapsed house here, A shattered school desk there, photographs soaked and stuck together, memories lost in the murky water. What once